Where I failed was I didn't pay attention to the red flags. I thought, oh, I can figure this out. And if somebody else is involved and they're making different decisions, good luck.
Today, we have Olympian and professional speaker Vince Poscente here to talk with us about his book, The Earthquake, but I want to get into what brought that about. And I think that's the real meat of some of this that really makes it come alive. And we want to get to how this applies in our life today. Welcome, Vince.
Probably good to see you again.
Great to see you as well. Now, like I said, there's so much that I want to get into. So I want to dive right into this, right? Because you came out first with your book, The Ant and the Elephant, which was a wonderful parable about how your conscious and unconscious mind work, right? In terms of getting to your goals. We've all talked about that. But can you give a quick synopsis in your words of the essence of that?
Well, I will give credit to the inspiration from a technical scientific standpoint. And Dr. Lee Poulos in research found that in a second of time, the conscious mind utilizes 2,000 neurons. So right now, your conscious mind is processing what I have to say with 2,000 neurons. And if you're seeing this, you're looking at me and you're thinking, wow, he looks like the old man from Up. Whatever you're thinking consciously with 2,000 neurons in a second. In the same second, the subconscious mind is processing with 4 billion neurons with a B. 2,000 conscious, 4 billion subconscious in just 1 second of time. The ratio of the conscious and subconscious is the exact same. That activity is the same ratio between an ant and an elephant. And so that's where the parable came about. I thought, wouldn't it be cool if an ant realized that he was on the back of an elephant, that he's not going to get to where he wants to go until he gets the elephant to go in the same direction. And so in the parable, the ant and the elephant go through all these machinations to be able to get to where they want to go. But the subconscious agenda can take us in the exact opposite direction. So, and that formula that actually is in the book, it's very prescriptive in nature, is the exact same formula that I used to get to the Olympic Games from recreational skier to Olympics in 4 years. So, writing a complex book is very easy, but writing a very elegant book or a story that really is sticky, that the content is useful, and that's why The Ant and the Elephant has done so well. So.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful parable where the ant is the conscious mind trying to go, and yet it's motoring this way, and yet the elephant it's walking on is going the other way. So it's about how can they work together, right, to get the subconscious, the elephant turned around.
Right. We all know what it feels like to have an idea or an intention and head towards that intention. Relationships with our fitness, or, walking by a mirror and going, well, that's got to go. We can intend to go in one direction, but end up in a different place altogether and go, how did I end up here? I mean, I wanted to go on this diet, but here I am with pizza in my face and 3 beers in, so, ending up in where we intend on ending up means that your ant and elephant are aligned. And that's the premise.
And you give a wonderful, like you say, formula for that in that book.
Thank you.
Now, the follow-up to that, the earthquake, before we get into this, what I'd like to ask about is, I know that there's a lot that happened to you personally that led to that book. Can you share a bit of that, of what happened for you that once you came through it, you started realizing that there was more story to tell?
Right. Well, I had the concept, and if you've ever written a book, you got to start with a good concept, something that's going to be, oh, wait a minute, what if? And then you fill in the blank. In this case, what if the ant and the elephant experienced an earthquake, right? What if the ground underneath their feet literally was taken out from under them and they had to reestablish themselves? And what you're, I think, referring to is I went through a financial earthquake, as many people did, but my timing was really bad because in 2007 I made two financial bets, and I was using leveraged money, I was using credit card debt, but they were two very good ideas if the economy would have kept going, which it stalled, and I was left held in the bag for two seven-figure bets that just cratered. And I mentioned earlier, I knew how to get to the Olympic Games in 4 years. I knew how to get to the New York Times best-selling list. I knew how to get into the Speaker Hall of Fame. All these different things that I was able to accomplish, I knew how to do. Yet getting out of an earthquake, this financial earthquake, I mean, I was at this very desk in 2008, 2009, just crying. I couldn't figure it out, and I was letting everybody around me down. I had a family. I had our dream home. Just everything was had cratered, and I had to realize what got me here isn't necessarily going to get us there. And that premise of the book, the concept of the earthquake, good concept, but I didn't even know the answer to it. I couldn't get out of my own damn earthquake. And so while I had the concept, it took 5, 6, 7 years to really turn this around for me financially and for my family. And there's still aftershocks from that. And so the formula in the book, the earthquake, the opening line is there's no linear way out of chaos.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah, well, bake on that for a minute, because especially for those of us who are very prescriptive in nature, just give me the formula. I'll paint by numbers. I'll just do this step, next step, and I'll get to where I want to go. And that's just not how it works. It's just not how it worked for me. And it doesn't work for those who go through an earthquake. Somebody loses a child, or somebody loses their job, or somebody has a
Or we have a
setback.
global pandemic.
Or you have a pandemic, and the entire world that you knew has turned upside down. And some people thrive because of the position they were in, or I think it was luck for many people that thrived during the pandemic, or they were able to, the pivot. Everybody got tired of the word pivot, but they literally pivoted what they were doing and thrived. And man, I didn't. And so it took a minute to get through all that, and it takes a while, and that's why I wrote The Earthquake. And I felt qualified to write The Earthquake because then I figured it out and figured out how to get out of our personal setbacks.
Right. So what were a couple of the really big ahas for you in your journey that you translated into the book? Because as you say, it's not linear.
Yeah, it's not linear. Well, if I had to summarize it in maybe a catchy term, it would be relentless curiosity. The concept, or the pursuit of finding an answer, that relentless curiosity is, does this work, or does this work, or does this work? And being able to just not give up on those possibilities. And it's not easy when you're maybe saying, that you've got an idea. Let's say somebody goes bankrupt, right? And all they know is this field. They're good at it. Maybe they're in the world of retail, right? And they go bankrupt. And their tendency is to say, well, what else am I going to do in retail? But to be devastated can create some really limiting beliefs that are at the subconscious level. That's the wackadoodle part of all this, is that we can actually create some new patterns, some new roadblocks that are unconscious. And why can't I figure this out? Why am I procrastinating? Why do I not want to get out of bed this morning? Why do I want to avoid this? I mean, all this stuff that we're holding ourselves back is such a bizarre part of the human condition. And at some point, all of us will experience what this feels like. Some of us, it can be absolutely devastating to where don't know a way out. And
Right.
veterans, people that fight for their country and then no longer have that structure, have no longer have that touchstone, and can go through a really difficult time because it's like feeling lost and then limited and then not wanting to go outside and not wanting to engage. That's a I wrote that book, The Earthquake, for our times, and it seems to it's really hitting a nerve, and I'm glad that I wrote the book, because not because I was thinking of some sort of marketing. I wanted to figure it out. Why can't I figure this out? And I'm really, really, really proud of the book and what it's done.
It is amazing. And it's funny what you just said, because there's some of the lessons that you pointed out throughout the book. And one of the ones I wrote down is to change your results, you have to change your beliefs.
Yeah.
Now, the challenge there is that with a lot of these beliefs are unconscious, so we don't even
Right.
know we have them. So the two questions I have for you around that is, first, how do you find that you can surface what those unconscious beliefs are? I have my own thoughts, but I'm curious what you have to say. And then how do you actually rewire them?
Right. Well, it all goes back to in the research, something called the cognitive model. And when you look at how we think and end up with our results or our beliefs, for example, often when we are not getting the results that we want, we will instantly go to our actions. So, wait, I don't like these results, so I'm going to change my actions. I don't like what's happening in these bad relationships, so I want to change how I approach relationships. I don't like how my finances are turning out, so I'm going to change how I treat my finances. Changing what you do to get different results is the default for all of us. Yet that's not where the answer is.
Right.
The answer is, as you mentioned, the beliefs. And there are conscious beliefs. In fact, I call it, the acronym, if you want to remember it, is called BAT the jar. BAT the JAR. Beliefs, attitudes, and truths are like this yield sign with a filter in the middle. And information passes through this filter. So we all have a conscious, but also in a larger context, the elephant, subconscious beliefs, attitudes, and truths. When information passes through, we will then make a judgment. From that judgment, we will then act or not act, inaction, and then we'll get results. And those results are either positive, neutral, or negative. And to answer your question, the second part here is, how do you know what the belief, attitude, or truth is that's holding us back? And the piece where the results are, where you start to look at your results and accept the fact that your results are a self-determined prophecy of your beliefs, attitudes, and truths in the first place. And that's a pill to swallow, because you go, wait a minute, I'm in an abusive relationship and I'm the one creating that abusive relationship. How could that be? I'm bankrupt, or, I was with a company and they went bankrupt, and, how could it be my fault that they went bankrupt? There, the beliefs, attitudes, and truths are so pervasive, and most of those are subconscious, that having a shift in a belief, attitude, and truth is the way to do it. Now, let me interrupt myself here and say that that term, fake it till you make it, I get why people say that, but faking is related to inauthenticity, right?
Right.
You're not authentic if you're faking it. So I get why we do it. We say, well, will this work? Will this work? Will this work? I get that. But really looking at that guided tour of our subconscious mind is by looking at the results that we have. This is why the book was very, very difficult to write, because it's a very complex thing, because
Mm-hmm.
we're also creatures of habit. What if we have bad habits that are unconscious? Well, so there's modules in the book to walk you through how to do that. And there's so many ways that we can be our own worst enemy if we're not happy with the results that we're getting. And that's why this persistent, relentless curiosity is so important, because that relentless curiosity was saying, why did I do that? What am I thinking when I do? Why is this happening?
Right.
Yeah. And there's the value of an outside perspective, which you and I both, I know you well. I know you know me well. And we're constantly poking at that outside perspective.
And when you say that, I go back to my first career was as a scientist, as a physicist, and there was never a time we had a $10 million particle accelerator. Never a time that we turned it on and it worked. Right? It's but we didn't go, oh my God, I failed. I'm going to go get depressed.
Okay.
No.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, let's try this. Let's try this. Let's try this. And it's okay. You learn each time, and you fine tune that relentless curiosity you talk about is how we operated
Yep. Mm-hmm.
until it worked. And what you've said is exactly for me how I uncover unconscious beliefs. It's look at the results. But the big thing you said, the big word is fault. A lot of people go to the guilt and the blame, and it's my fault. And it's none of that. That's just baggage. It's just, to me, it's just responsible. Does this make sense? And if I'm responsible, I can change it.
Yeah, it's what what is that serenity prayer? Give me the wisdom to change the things that I can,
Yeah.
and wisdom to not to whatever it is. So say not change to look it up.
Yeah.
And it's a good one, because there's stuff out of our control. There's stuff that we can change, and there's stuff that we have to let go. And here's another piece of it that really adds to the complex nature of all this. Let's say that your results are painful, that there's
Yes.
pain associated to this result. And what if some third party comes along and says, "Oh, Ravi, just let it go, let be." Our instant reaction is going to go, let's say the pain is a knife in your leg, right? Let's say there's a metaphorical knife in your thigh, right? And somebody says, "Oh, don't focus on the pain. Focus on all the good." Or no, there's an effing knife in my
You want
leg.
to punch them in the face.
Right. So how do you not focus on the pain when the pain is so distracting and so pervasive that that's the only focus that can happen at that moment? So then that's a piece of the equation. And here we are in a world based on instant gratification where we just want results faster. And so what do? Well, sometimes we medicate, sometimes alcohol, sometimes drugs, some oxycontin, whatever the escape can be
Right.
away from the pain, then becomes another part of it. And so it's this game of psychological pile on that's happening in the subconscious mind. And it's no wonder it's difficult to get out of an earthquake. It's no
Right.
wonder that this can be such a massive, massive struggle. So, I mean, every single person that I come across that is struggling in some form or fashion, I'm giving them that book. That's why I wrote the book. That people who need it will read it, and I'm going broke giving away the book, but because there's a lot of pain out there, right? There's a
There
lot of
is. And
yeah,
especially seriously after the pandemic, lots of stuff a lot of people haven't dealt with the stuff from it.
yeah, yeah.
So I want to get to one other key thing that I jotted down from there, something that you said, that there's a problem. There's always opinions on a problem, right, wrong, this, that, right? And you said, when I choose my side, I become part of the problem.
Yeah. Yeah, that line haunts me to today. And here's how I heard that line. I won't say which side said it, but I will say it was in the Middle East. And that person was referring to the other side, meaning, I quote, he said, "My father was shot by the other side. My sister was shot in the back and died as well by the other side." And he said, I quote, "I have every reason to hate, fill in the blank, the other side. But I realized at that moment, when you choose a side, you become part of the problem." And I get pushback. Yeah, I live in Dallas, Canadian, married a Texan, living in Dallas. And there's some people on the extremes who are so far on that extreme will push back on that idea and say, "No, no, no. No, 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 no. You have to choose a side. You have to choose a side because," then they have their rationale of why their side is the right side. And there is elegance in the gray area. There is magic in the word "and." There is this space in between where resolutions reside. And wouldn't it be nice for everything to be binary, up or down, left or right, good or bad? but there's nuance to everything. And so being able to embrace the nuance, when you choose a side, you become part of the problem, speaks to those of us who are so committed to one side or the other.
And to being
And
right.
well, that's it. That's yeah. I get hives when I when people are so committed to being right that they can't hear that there's a maybe a different way to look at this. So why does somebody stay in an abusive relationship where their life might be in danger? Because believe it or not, the cognitive model, the bat, the jar, their belief, attitude, and truth, it could be deservability, it could be low self-esteem, it could be, but being right ends up being that default groove where we just get back in that pattern and just stay there to our own detriment. So, the human condition is wonderful, it's complex, it's a head scratcher, and it's also one that we're looking at from the inside out. And for each of us to tweak the dials to does this work to figuring out that relentless curiosity will take us through the complexity of one side or the other. And in a world of instant gratification, that might not be what you want to hear, but it takes time, and the nuance starts to reveal itself as what is it? One of the Stoics said, "What's in the way is the way." So going straight at this, straight at the fear, straight at the pain, straight at that thing that is causing this consternation or debilitation or catatonic behavior where we can't even move because we're so afraid of more pain. That is what's in the way is the way. I don't know.
Right.
I might be speaking in circles, but it's such
No,
a complex dynamic. It's not one side or the other. It's a dynamic that needs to be had constant attention.
well, I mean, that comes back to what you said at the beginning. There is no linear way
Right.
out of it, right? And
No
I,
linear.
I understand what you're saying because I worked with complexity as a physicist, and it's
Right.
not about there's this or that. It's multifaceted, and it's finding those little pressure points, which I
Mm.
think, there's a beautiful framework that you've got, the flower, that I
Right.
think is a way that you have of approaching this in a non-linear way to start to see that there may be a different way than either of those. I do love too that in the metaphor you've got your ant and deer and you've got the elephant and other characters, but you've got this their advisor Brio, and you've got the one of the people attacking them is vulture Balthar,
Valifar. Yeah. Yeah.
and then they wind up.
Are you going to give it
Can I
away?
give a spoiler?
Yeah. Yeah. You're going to give it away.
The
Yeah.
two the Valafar hated Brio, the owl, the wise, and then they wind up the best buddies, saying living this that there is no side at the
Right.
end.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the beauty of a parable. I mean, I, I give speeches for a living. This is how I make most of my money is opening a convention with a high energy, fun talk and just the chance to be able to share tactics that I used as an athlete fall on deaf ears unless it's attached to a story.
Yeah,
And if the story puts the audience in the observer mode, like they go, "Oh, how nice for you. That happened to you." Well, then it's not a well told story. But if a parable like this draws you into the experience, then you never forget an experience. And
right,
that is the reason a parable can. And in this book, The Earthquake, I believe this story of the ant and the elephant experiencing an earthquake and coming up against all these headwinds and how they deal with these struggles makes it a page turner on its own, with or without the content in there of all the solutions and how to get to those results we want in our life and how to get past the earthquake. There is content in that book, but to have a story that draws you in and goes, well, then what happened? Well, here's the secret is if you can Velcro content to an unforgettable experience, people don't forget the content because it's
right.
Velcroed in there. They own it. They internalize it. So parables have magic to them. Stories have magic to them. And it's essential for us communicators to make sure we bring those stories to life in the inside of the individual rather than just something they observe. So,
Right. And I really want to thank you for sharing this story as well as all of the rest that you do from the main stage.
Check it out, check it out. Are you ready for this?
So, Vince, I would like to wrap things up. I have this, what I call the lightning round. So, questions, don't think first thing that pops to mind if you can.
I'm
all
good
right?
at not thinking, so go for it.
I'm not going to touch that one. All right. So, first thing that pops to mind, introvert or extrovert?
Introvert.
What's the most favorite job you've ever had?
I was a swim instructor for 4 and 5-year-old kids.
Very cool.
Yeah.
What's the goofiest thing you've ever done? I know you'd have to sift through a lot.
I do have a ton of material here. The goofiest thing I've ever done would probably be riding on top of a car in a pink rubber suit because I couldn't afford a wind tunnel when I was ski racing.
Right. For the skiing. Great. What's the best compliment you've ever received?
I overheard my kids talking to somebody and they said, "What's one piece of advice you learned from your dad?" And it's a dream come true. They said, "Oh, that's easy. Never make a decision based on fear." And when I overheard that, I'm getting choked up thinking about it right now because that's so important.
That's huge. That's awesome. What's your biggest failure and what did you learn from it?
Oh, well, failure is a loaded word, but I would say I was married before. And where I failed was I didn't pay attention to the red flags. I thought, oh, I can figure this out, And if somebody else is involved and they're making different decisions, good luck.
Yeah.
So my failure was not paying attention to those red flags, not the marriage ending, because that's still to this day a relief. It was the red flags that are just so important to pay attention to.
That we ignore. Yeah. Great. As a child, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be the premier of Alberta.
Oh, okay. Interesting. What's your most important ritual?
Meditation.
Who do you admire?
I would say my mom. She is just constantly looking for the humor in all things.
She has you. So.
Yeah, well, yeah. The apple is literally at the base of the tree on that one.
How do you nourish yourself?
Meditation.
Okay.
Meditate in the morning and at night, in the afternoon. So,
Wow.
so many benefits. Yeah.
Cool. What do you want to be remembered for?
I don't care if I'm remembered. I don't care. I just want to leave this campsite better than I found it. And every day I live by this question: how will I serve with love? And that's a life well lived for me.
Love it. And finally, what's your purpose in life?
My purpose in life is to enrich the lives of others.
Wonderful. So thank you so much, Vince, for being with us. Highly, highly encourage listeners to get both of these books if they haven't already. We will have information on that. If someone wants to track you down, where's the best place for your speaking or for other ways to?
Well, let me put it this way. Let me give you it's a giveaway, and
Sure.
It's called elephantpower.net. Elephantpower.net.
Okay.
And there there's a free portion to this, and it will help you and enrich your life, quite frankly. And it is a way to be able to get what I call the emotional buzz, to target that one thing that may be missing and how to crystallize what that is. Elephantpower.net is how you can track me down. I'm so easy to find on the internet anyways, but
Yeah.
if you can't spell Poscente and then you type in polenta, good luck.
Thank you so much. And it's always, always a pleasure, Vince.
You too, Robbie. I really love everything you do. And when you reached out, I went, I am in, whatever it is. So the answer was yes.
I know I've got